Welcome to the October 5, 2020 Frankfort Village Board meeting. We call this meeting to order, and we ask our clerk, Brian Feary, to take the roll, please.
Mayor Holland.
Here.
Trustee Severia.
Here.
Trustee Petro.
Here.
Trustee Ogle.
Here.
Trustee Farina.
Here.
Trustee Clavio.
Here.
Trustee Borelli.
Here.
Clerk Feary's here. Attorney Mahoney.
Here.
Attorney Lamore. Chief Barica. Administrator Pisha.
Here.
Assistant Administrator Cook.
Here.
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on our agenda is what we call the unanimous consent agenda. All items on the unanimous consent agenda are considered routine in nature and will be voted on after a single motion. If any of the trustees want to discuss any of those items in more detail, we will just remove that item from the consent agenda. So I first ask, do any of the trustees want to remove any items from the consent agenda? Not hearing any, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Ogle and a second by Trustee Severia to approve the consent agenda. Now we'd like the people who are here in our audience tonight in the boardroom and the people who are watching this broadcast on the television or on the internet to know something about the items that we're approving. So we'll go over each one of them just briefly. The first item is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on September 21st. Second item is the approval of the bills, and we'll go to Trustee Severia, who is the chairperson of our Finance Committee, for a report on those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bills tonight equal $3,284,550.70. All the bills are pretty routine tonight, with our sewer and water extension fund still coming in as one of the largest line items at $1,236,952.32, and that concludes the bills tonight.
Well, thank you, Gene. And then we have an item from the Committee of the Whole. Now, the Committee of the Whole is the Village Board, are the trustees and myself, and we've been discussing this item at a couple of our meetings, and we'll go to Trustee Farina for a report on this issue.
Thank you, Mayor Holland. On August 31st, 2020, the Village of Frankfort received a letter from Corey Weaver requesting termination of the lease agreement between the Village of Frankfort and My Sisters and Me Boutique, Incorporated, for the property located at 1 North White Street, effective September 30th, 2020. At the Committee of the Whole meeting held on September 8th, 2020, members discussed termination provisions and recommended the Village retain the security deposit and move forward with the lease termination agreement. Ms. Weaver vacated the property on September 30th, 2020, and provided an executed copy of the lease termination agreement. The agreement comes before the board for its consideration and approval. So the motion before us this evening is to accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, waive the first and second readings, and pass an ordinance authorizing the execution of the lease termination agreement between the Village of Frankfort and My Sisters and Me Boutique Incorporated for 1 North White Street property.
Thank you, Margaret. And then we have one item from our Financial Affairs Committee, so we'll go back to its chair, Trustee Severia, for a report on that issue.
At its September 9th meeting, the Financial Affairs Committee reviewed the appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2020-2021. This appropriation ordinance specifies a maximum amount which can be legally spent for fiscal year, whereas the budget, which was passed back in April, establishes a maximum amount which may be spent. Typically, the appropriation ordinance must be passed by the board before the end of the first quarter of fiscal year, or 7/31/20. Due to this pandemic and part of the General Assembly's COVID-19 response efforts, a new law, Public Act 101-0640, was enacted and gave municipalities additional time to pass their appropriation ordinance. This additional time allowed staff to monitor the impact of the pandemic and was having on the village's revenues and expenditures. As a result, the following revenue line items have been reduced by 15%. Sales tax, non-home rule sales tax, income tax, motor fuel tax allotments. Appropriated revenues as well as invested funds are sufficient to cover all appropriated expenses. The requested appropriation is $51,051,711, which is $7,221,990, or 12.4% lower than last year's appropriation of $58,273,701. The overall decrease mainly relates to its decreased appropriated amount for the wastewater treatment plant. As this project is coming to an end, the fiscal year 2021 appropriated the amount for the wastewater treatment plant project is $4,158,000, compared to an appropriated amount of $15,396,350 last year. In addition, the general capital fund increased by $977,700. Most of this increase relates to the village's street resurfacing program, bringing the total budget for this program to $3 million for fiscal year 2021. The utility capital project fund increased $2,863,000 when compared to last year. This increase mainly relates to additional dollars appropriated for the water main project. General appropriating expenses in total increased $851,260 from the prior year. The majority of the increase is within the police department, which includes additional police officers' positions. This year, total appropriation is $51,051,711 is $4,399,211 over the total budget amount of $46,650,500. It was a consensus of the committee to forward the recommendation to the village board to adopt the appropriation ordinance as presented. The motion is accept the recommendation of the Financial Affairs Committee, waive the first and second reading, and pass the annual appropriation ordinance providing an appropriation for the corporate purpose in the amount of $51,051,711 for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2020 and ending April 30th, 2021 for the Village of Frankfort.
Thank you, Gene. And those are all of the items on the unanimous consent agenda this evening. So is there anyone in the audience who wanted to comment to the village board on any of these items before we vote on them? Not hearing anything. Any comments from the trustees? Then we'll go to our clerk, Brian Feary, for the vote.
Trustee Borelli.
Aye.
Trustee Clavio.
Yes.
Trustee Farina.
Aye.
Trustee Ogle.
Yes.
Trustee Petro.
Yes.
Trustee Severia.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our next order of business is again from a Committee of the Whole report. And I'll tell you something about what's going on this one. It has to do with the sale of 1 North White Street. At our last meeting on September 21st, the village board postponed its consideration to adopt a resolution authorizing the sale of surplus real estate for the property commonly known as 1 North White Street. And we redirected staff to make some adjustments to the schedule and terms for the potential sale of the surplus property. Now, 1 North White Street is the building in which the My Sisters and Me business has operated for many years on White Street in downtown Frankfort. At its August 17, 2020, and September 8, 2020, and September 21, 2020 meetings, the Committee of the Whole discussed the sale of the parcel and unanimously recommended the sale be conducted by the staff of the Village of Frankfort. Members also suggested to extend the timeline for the contract proposal process and potential sale of the surplus property. Staff made the recommended revisions, and a resolution authorizing the sale of the surplus real estate comes before the board this evening. The minimum purchase price for the property is set at the appraisal value of $300,000 and is being sold in as-is, where-is condition. The survey, legal description, a written MIA, AI certified appraisal of the surplus property for sale is available for public inspection during regular business hours at the village office. The village will accept requests for purchase proposals until 12 noon on November 30th, 2020. I'm going to just read a couple of the whereas phrases in the resolution, just to give the public a little bit of flavor of what we're talking about on selling this particular piece of property. Now realize we platted out a piece of land that basically surrounds the building and has a little bit of extra land in the back of the building to bring it up to, I think it's 5,000 square feet, which is the minimum size for the H1 zoning. It does not include all the rest of the old Fox Lumber property at all, which is a big portion of Prairie Park and the big parking lot downtown. That's not being sold, just basically the building and the land under it. Whereas the corporate authorities of the village have found and determined it is in the interest of the village and its residents to have the parcel privately owned and operated as a retail enterprise with uses as may be appropriate for that location. The village corporate authorities find and determine the parcel is surplus property which should be offered for sale. At its August 17th, September 8th, September 21 meetings, the Committee of the Whole discussed the sale of the parcel and unanimously recommended the sale be conducted, the terms and conditions of which are subject to the approval of the village corporate authorities. The village encourages and may give preference to offers from prospective buyers who are committed to the continued operation of the building on the parcel for sales tax producing retail or restaurant uses that are consistent with a thriving historic business district. The village will consider both price and proposed use of the property to determine if any contract proposal is in the best interest of the village. The prospective buyer will be responsible to pay the village a one-time cash in lieu payment for the required parking in the amount of $3,000 per required parking space pursuant to our zoning ordinance as amended from time to time, except, however, the fee shall not be assessed for the first 10 required parking places. Now that means if it's a little retail store, probably won't have to pay for parking, but if it's a restaurant, they're gonna have to pay a parking fee because different uses have different parking requirements. The village reserves a right in its sole discretion to reject any and all proposals to purchase the property. The village reserves a right to reopen the process to solicit additional contract purchase proposals. In the event the process is reopened, all contract proposals may be amended and resubmitted. The village corporate authorities may accept any contract proposal determined by them to be in the best interests of the village by a vote of 2/3 of the corporate authorities. So those are just a few of the provisions, and this document and its attachments goes on for many pages. So people who are interested in buying or making an offer on that 1 North White Street property are welcome to do so, and those offers are due by, what is it, November 30th. Yeah, let's be careful and get these dates right. So the motion is, and I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole and adopt a resolution authorizing the sale of surplus real estate for the property commonly known as 1 North White Street, Frankfort, Will and Cook Counties, Illinois.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Ogle and a second by Trustee Farina. Any comments, discussion from the trustees? Trustee Petro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to recognize staff and all of the committee members for the multiple meetings and thought that went into the sale of this process and the dates and the outline that was put together. I think we've come together with a really nice plan for any interested parties.
Thank you, Jess. Anyone else? Trustee Clavio.
I just wanted to point out for any prospective bidders that this contract is a contract that has no contingencies. So one of the things that we discussed is your proposed use may need approval from the Plan Commission, but that is not a contingency to get you out of this contract. So just be very careful about what you're presenting to us, because if you're accepted, you have to buy this property.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Then we'll go to our clerk, Brian Feary, for the vote.
Trustee Petro. Yes. Trustee Severia. Yes. Trustee Ogle.
Yes.
Trustee Borelli. Trustee Clavio. Trustee Farina. Yes. Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda this evening is what's called the Mayor's Report. The first item on the Mayor's Report is applications to fill Historic Preservation Commission vacancy are available. Well, they are available on the website and at the Village Hall. And this is for the Historic Preservation Commission, a group of 5 people who have taken great interest in preserving Frankfort's history, and especially architectural history. And they have some ability to create landmark status out of buildings, and very interesting job indeed, and a talented group of people. And one of the persons who was on it moved out of town, so we're looking for another person. So let's, I think we should have a date that these applications are due by. Let's make that Monday, October 12th. This will be the second meeting at which we've announced this availability, and so let's see if we get some interested applicants by the 12th. Village branch collections to end in mid-October. Now, this is always a fun time of year. We switch our trucks from branch pickup to leaf pickup, and it doesn't quite work to do both at the same time, so partially because of equipment, partially because we only have so many employees. A very interesting time if the leaves don't cooperate. But we're going to stop the branch pickup on October 12th. We're going to convert the equipment and start the leaf pickup on October 19th. Now, the leaf pickup goes to November 23rd, and then we usually do one more branch pickup, I think, after that. Now, you can always bundle your branches or put them in the paper bags. But if you bundle the branches, you got to tie them together and put one of those green tags on it, one of the fee stickers, and then New Way will pick it up if you leave it out. And if you put everything into one of those brown bags, you got to put the green sticker on it too, put it out there. So that's how that works. We do have, there's a green event in Will County. It's not very convenient for us, that's for sure. There's one in Wilmington and one in Beecher that they'll take all kinds of hazardous materials. And I think what I'll just tell you is if you've got hazardous materials, batteries, electronics, paint, all kinds of stuff that's not supposed to go into the landfills or the dumps, you go to willcountygreen.com, and they have schedules where they take that sort of thing. And this month it's going to be in Wilmington and Beecher. Year-round, you can recycle electronics, and I've done this before. It works great. On the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, 5 to 7 at the Frankfort Township Building right here next to Frankfort over by Wolf and 30. Very convenient. That's on the second and fourth Tuesdays in the late afternoon. Country Market continues through October 25th. And I did get a email just this afternoon from Marcia Stewart. Marcia Stewart is one of the persons on the Historic Preservation Commission. She's also on the, the Historic Society, and I think it's called the Preservation Commission, another group in Frankfort. One of them's a government group, the other two are volunteer groups. Marcia's very interested in preserving history. And she tells me that to commemorate the 100th year anniversary of the 19th Amendment, legally allowing women the right to vote, the Frankfort Area Historical Society created a temporary exhibit to honor the 6 women who have been elected to office in Frankfort. The exhibit can be viewed from outside. The museum itself is open Thursday to Saturday, 10 to 4, and on Sundays, 11 to 2. Well, good for them. They've created an exhibit that you can see through the windows about, she says, the 6 women who have been elected to office in the village of Frankfort. I think she means to elected office in the village of Frankfort, because I can name the 6, and I've known all 6. And I'm really, frankly, very surprised that there aren't more than that. But I don't know if anybody else can here name those 6, but there are some are still around, some have died. Marion Gluntz, she passed away, but she was a trustee. Rosalie Placati, she was a trustee. And Cindy Heath was a trustee, and she's not passed away. She's my neighbor. And Johnny Mark, some of you may remember her. She was the clerk here in the village for some time. And then, of course, we have Margaret Farina and Jessica Petro. So that, to me, makes the 6. I keep thinking there must be more, people that I never knew. But. Kate Romani, so there's a 7th. Oh, we're going to have fun with this, won't we? Kate Romani was another clerk. Maybe they meant just trustees, and I'm missing a trustee. We'll see. We'll see, but we need to get that straight, that's for sure. That concludes the mayor's report, and we'll go to our police chief, John Barica, for the police department report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make residents aware that with the schools coming back to in-person learning, we are starting to see some backups in the areas of the school during drop-off and pickups. So if you can avoid those areas and you don't need to go there, you should. But if you do need to go there, make sure you're using caution. There's more bicyclists, pedestrians, and obviously a lot more vehicle traffic over there. We are working with the schools to see what we can do. However, with just the amount of car riders right now, it's becoming a bit of an issue with how many cars are trying to get in there at one time. And also, of course, just make sure that people lock their cars and don't take their key fobs in, don't leave their keys in their car, and put their garage doors down at night. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, John. And for the village administrator's report, we go to our village administrator, Rob Pisha.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to remind residents that hydrant flushing will continue through November 2nd. You should see signs posted at the entrances to the subdivisions. We just want to remind residents that the idea behind it is to basically keep our water mains clear, and so it kind of stirs up the pipe, so we ask you to refrain from using too much water during that time, just to allow us to get the pipes done. Also wanted to let you know that NICOR is offering a $4.5 million bill payment assistance program, and qualified residents can go to nicorgas.com and look for it for details, but it's basically to help residents during this time with COVID-related expenses. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Rob. And now for the village attorney's report, we go to our village attorneys, Hannah Lamore and George Mahoney.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. And that brings us to the part of our meeting we call Other Business, and this evening we'll start with our clerk, Brian Feary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to touch base about the Village of Frankfort will conduct early voting for the November 3rd, 2020 general election. Early voting will begin on Monday, October 19th and run through Friday, October 30th from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday at the Village Administration Building. The Public Library, 221-119 South Pfeiffer, will also conduct early voting beginning October 19th through October 30th from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Please contact the Will County Clerk's Office at 815-740-4615 or visit willcountyclerk.com to request a vote by mail ballot and cast your vote in the privacy of your own home. And you can drop that ballot off at the library. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Brian. Trustee Clavio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing further this evening.
Thank you, John. Trustee Petro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to wish all of the runners that are participating in the Old Plank 5K run or walk this year. It is a virtual event, so anyone who participated this weekend or this week, I'm looking forward to seeing some fun selfies and have fun on your 5K.
Thank you, Jez. Trustee Severia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every year, the women of the Suburban Service League hold Crystal Ball. This year, with the pandemic, they can't do it live, so they are doing a virtual event, and there's a website. It's avchicago.com/SSL. The site is currently open for donations and will be open for a silent auction on October 31st. These women do great things for the community. I hope that you'll all consider supporting them. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jean. Trustee Farina.
No
Comments this evening, Mayor Holland.
Thank you, Margaret. Trustee Ogle.
Okay, can I use Margaret's comments to paste then? Okay. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Clerk Ferry, also for the information about the early voting. A lot of people have been asking, and whether we would have the early voting at the village this year because of the COVID. You can also go down and vote at the Will County Clerk's office. The first couple days they did it, there were some long lines, but went last week, and we were through there in about 5 minutes. I happened to be in Joliet for the reason. Something that's pretty neat locally, and I loved it when I saw it. Our historic downtown has a little program going on. They are collecting canned goods for the food pantry, and it's I think it's tagged Support Your Local Small Business, and they are collecting them from October 1st through November 11th. Very, very nice thing they initiate on their own, and some of the local businesses are collecting them, and they'll all contribute them back. Noticed that school was back. I saw our school resource officer, Riff, this morning out at Laraway Road and 116th, out by the school. It says heading off for the morning. It's nice to see our students, going back. I think it's very important for everyone's not only education, but for the mental health and stability of the whole community, for us to be interacting with each other and face-to-face, as we can do that safely. And the 5K, Kim and I have volunteered for that for many, many years to register people for it, and this year is the virtual one. I think Wednesday morning. I've been practicing. I've been walking the 5K, not running it, getting my time a little better each time a little bit. So I think Wednesday morning I'm going to go out there. If anybody needs some encouragement or a buddy or something like that, just send me a message, and walk it together, and we'll finish this thing together. So I encourage everybody to get out there, and especially in this time of COVID, to try to stay healthy, keep your, stay active, eat well, get enough rest, and take care of yourself. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Trustee Borelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to say congratulations to Hickory Creek. We have a couple of regional champions. The baseball team and the softball team both won regionals. Unfortunately, due to COVID, the state said they're not going to go beyond regionals, so there won't be any sectionals or state. So they did the best they could. Especially proud of number 15 from our softball team. I love you, and I'm so proud of you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Adam. And that brings us to the part of our meeting we call public comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the village board this evening? And if so, please come up to the podium so you can be heard on the television and on the internet.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees. My name's John Partallo. I'm an attorney, and I represent Jerry and Terry Warning, who are also here with me tonight. And I'm here to talk to you for a few minutes about the lawsuit that the village has filed and is currently pending against the Warnings, which seeks to close down their Southern Charm wedding venue business. The Warnings would like to speak to you in a minute, but I'm here tonight to explain that since this lawsuit was filed in April, we have now engaged in a defense before the court, and I won't get into the details of that. I'm sure your attorneys have briefed you on that. But we, last Friday, an order was entered by the court, and that order was a temporary restraining order that the effect of which will be to close down the Southern Charm wedding business immediately. The judge stayed that order until Tuesday the 13th, which is next week, and that will then go into effect and will immediately close down any further business on that property. We presented this to the court as well as your attorneys on the 18th of September when we were at the hearing before the court, that we have, through the end of this wedding season, currently 4 more weddings scheduled to be held at the location, October 10th, which is next Saturday, and then the 3 following Saturdays, the 17th, the 21st, or 24th, and the 31st. This order, being stayed until next Tuesday, will allow us to conduct the wedding on the 10th. But after Tuesday, the 13th, it will close us down, and we will not be able to hold the weddings we have scheduled on the 17th, the 24th, and the 31st. What the Warnings are here today to ask you is to consider, as a board, agreeing to a stay of that order after the 13th through the end of October to allow us to conduct the 3 additional weddings that we already have scheduled and end the wedding season as of the 31st of October. So they're asking you to consider that as a way to preserve those weddings that we already have scheduled, and then after that, we will have the many months after that to try to resolve the dispute with the village. What I will say is my clients do not want to be in a fight with the village. My clients have lived here more than 20 years. They have operated that pole barn facility on their property for all of that 20 years, hosting various events, including weddings, during that entire time. In the late summer or early fall of 2019, they contacted the village, and the village had an inspector come out along with the Fire Protection District inspector to take a look at the facility and make sure that we were complying with all life safety requirements so that we were conducting all of the events there in a safe manner. We did all of those things. We spent a considerable amount of our own money to upgrade the system. We've passed all of the inspections, and I would submit to you that there is no safety concern about conducting the events that we conduct there as we stand here today. So we would be interested, my clients, I will tell you this, when the lawsuit was filed back in April and I was retained to represent the warnings, the first thing I did was I made a telephone call to your council. And I asked your council very directly if there was any way that we could engage in some discussions before we started World War II, which is how litigation sometimes ends up, to see if we could reach some agreement that accommodated all of the concerns of the village, but continue to allow us to operate a business that, in our view, is a business that's very beneficial to the village itself and in no way causes any problems or is any threat to the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents of the village. So I was told at that point that there was no interest in having those discussions and that the village's position was indeed they wanted to close down this business at this site for good. And so the reason I give you that background is my clients are definitely interested in having those discussions, and we'd like to continue to have those discussions with the village to see if we can reach some accommodation. So prior to having those discussions, we'd like the village board to consider a stay of the order that was entered last Friday to allow us to complete the wedding season through the end of October and then engage in further discussions. One last thing that I don't know if any of you know, we also have filed an application for a special use permit on that property for this particular use. That application was filed on September 25th, and it's pending. And so we anticipate you considering the request that we have tonight, as well as having further discussions either about the current operation or in conjunction with the special use permit. I'll answer any questions you have tonight, and if you have none for me, my client, Terry Warning, would like to have a few words and read a statement to the board, if that would be okay.
Certainly would be.
Terrific, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I would just like to say the use of our pole barn, as stated in the annexation agreement, has been used for various uses throughout the past 20 years, storage and many social gatherings throughout these decades. This is why Warning Excavating had always insured the pole barn with an events coverage. Excuse me. As senior citizens in retirement age, my husband Jerry and I thought how wonderful to have just weddings on 32 acres of our land in our pole barn. We would be part of sharing the most important day of a couple's life. We felt good in our hearts to make that day their special one, the memories of a lifetime. We have been blessed with many wonderful reviews stating how happy the bride and groom's special day turned out. Also how charming our venue is and how caring Jerry and I were throughout their event. These reviews, not only from our brides, but from parents of the bride, grooms, family members, friends, and guests. The comments to us personally throughout the evening from the guests were also how beautiful our pole barn was, with the history of the saber room chandeliers to the unique decor. To know in our hearts we made a difference, and having shared our pole barn made us feel grateful inside that this was a great way of giving back and making a difference that mattered. Due to making this all about the bride, we limited to having approximately 18 to 20 weddings per year on a Saturday, May through November, out of 365 days of the year. My husband worked very hard to keep our pole barn looking pristine and with tastefully done decor and details throughout our entire place. We did not change the footprint of the building. A mother of the bride had written a lovely letter expressing their gratitude and stating, "We also have to say how wonderful it was having a venue we did not have to share. I don't know any other venue other than Southern Charm that offers this in this area. It goes along with the small town feel Frankfort is known for, so it makes sense, and Southern Charm is so appropriately named. Frankfort is very fortunate to have such a wonderful venue in their town." August 19th, we were contacted by the Village of Frankfort to do an inspection to make sure there were no glaring life safety issues that would jeopardize the public for use of our pole barn. And concerned about the zoning, they were open to and willing to consider. They asked if they could come and see the pole barn along with the fire department. They seemed very impressed as how beautiful everything looked. The village's concern was not having a sprinkling system. We agreed we would put in a sprinkling system even though we were not hooked up to sewer and water. We knew this would be a big expense and willing to do that for the safety of our guests. On several occasions, we applied for a business license. We attended the village meeting on October 7th, 2019, and tried to apply and also asked for a special use permit, and Mayor Holland said no at that time. We applied again November 11th, 2019, and were denied the business license because they said this type of business, excuse me, I need a drink, does not exist in agriculture zoning. In fact, this type of business does exist in many agriculture zoning under agritourism. Lockport has Cottonwood, Homer Glen has Zachary Barn. I contacted the village official regarding my concern of the business license and wanted to know how to proceed. He informed me Frankfort will not shut you down. He stated this is a gray area and I should read between the lines. Again, the village official stated me, Frankfort will not shut you down. I was happy we could continue to have our weddings. The village of Frankfort allowed the next 7 weddings to occur as long as we had a licensed fire protection watch at our pole barn during the entire wedding, which we did our due diligence to follow that, but the village of Frankfort required us to continue hosting our already scheduled weddings. My husband was checking every licensed sprinkling system out there to put down a down payment for this to start being installed during the winter months is to be ready for the 2020 wedding season. We spent over $140,000 due to not being hooked up to any sewer and water. On December 3rd, 2019, 9:39 a.m., I sent an email to the village officials stating this letter is to inform you that we are complying with the Frankfort Fire Department for all necessary safety requirements to our existing pole barn. This will be done in order to continue our existing business without any interruptions. Please feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns. Thank you, Terry Warning. The above is the last I or the village had until April 13th, 2020, when we received a summons to shut down Southern Charm venues. My husband and I were blindsided, to say the least, let alone the shock and the impact of COVID that we had to endure. Also hiring a lawyer for the summons. We are so distraught over the treatment of the village of Frankfort as to why we were misled that Frankfort would not shut us down. Why, like other neighboring communities, are being discriminated against and not even be considered to change the zoning from agriculture to agritourism. We now received a temporary restraining order from the Village of Frankfort as of October 13th, 2020, to discontinue, take all advertising, social media, Facebook, and anything related to Southern Charm venues, or we will go to jail. This has been one of the most stressful years for my brides and their families due to COVID, as I'm sure it is for all small businesses, let alone to be forced down to shut down completely from the Village of Frankfort over a zoning issue that can be agritourism. This TRO would impact the last 3 weddings of the season, October 17th, 24th, and 31st. I am pleading to you, the Village of the Trustees and Mayor Holland, to please have empathy for these brides that have been waiting for their special day since little girls. Respectfully, Terry Warning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm taking that off just so you can hear me well. To whom it may concern, I am very concerned about my good neighbors Terry and Jerry Warning. I'm Nancy Shugan. I've lived at 23515 South Harlem Avenue in unincorporated Monee Township since 1985. We were given the option to have our mailing address changed to match our physical location when we purchased the house. We declined the option because we knew Frankfort had a stellar reputation as a quaint country town carrying just the right amount of humble pride in its history and its development in the future. Frankfort took the best of the 20th century without giving up its 18th century charm. So I take humble pride in saying my address is Nancy Shugan, 23515 South Harlem Avenue, Frankfort, Illinois, 60423. When I heard that my beloved Frankfort was causing problems for my good neighbors Jerry and Terry, I was disheartened and distressed. Frankfort needs to know Jerry the way I know Jerry in order to understand what a monumental mistake they are trying to do to a man who is an asset to the neighborhood and to the Village of Frankfort itself. Jerry is the ultimate gentleman in the Bing Crosby or Gregory Peck sense of the word. When he moved into the neighborhood, he threw a big welcome new neighbors party in his barn, in which he stored and maintained his large excavating equipment for his business. When I walked into the barn and saw the bales of hay and straw that he'd set up equally for decoration as well as for casual seating, I knew he was just the right person for the neighborhood and for Frankfort. Back in 1999, Jerry and Terry quietly hosted parties in his barn on the weekends, sometimes for family and friends when someone graduated or had a special occasion, sometimes as a small wedding or parting venue, making a small profit. I think it was just because he enjoyed hosting parties and showing off Terry's amazing decorating and designing skills. They truly are amazing. You should come out and see. I truly didn't know that they were hosting the parties because they were so quiet until I saw a horse and buggy beautifully adorned with an even more beautiful bride and her lucky groom taking a country ride between the ceremony and the reception. There's never been an occasion when I was disturbed by loud or raucous parties or excessive traffic. In fact, the entrance to 57 just east of us, has created far more traffic increase than Jerry and Terry's small wedding parties on the occasional Saturday afternoon. Jerry and Terry have made their barn into a beautiful country setting for a wedding, and it is just amazing. I wish I could tell you about all the beautiful antiques, the chandeliers from the fabled Sabre Room in downtown Chicago, the hardwood pews available for a bride's traditional walk down the aisle. The building has a commercial-grade sprinkler system and food preparation and storage equipment. He has invested well into creating the Southern Comfort business, or Southern Charm business, and it would be a crime to affect it in any way. Despite being busy running a long, successful business, Jerry was always happy to lend a hand to my husband, who grew up in the apartments on Chicago's South Side. Jerry was a patient teacher and introduced my husband to the gritty rural life. When my husband decided to return to city life, he left me with divorce papers in the house. I was not unhappy about keeping the house. Jerry offered to plow my 400-foot driveway in the winter so that I never had to go out and shovel by myself. 400 feet? He also offered to come over and lend a hand with bigger projects. He tore out my cement sidewalk, my old cement sidewalk, when it needed replacing. He's helped move storm-damaged trees out of the front yard so I could chainsaw them into firewood. I am a country girl. I own 5 chainsaws. I could go on for many pages about how much of an asset Jerry is to the neighborhood and Jerry's business is to Frankfort. Please, please protect him from unfair and vendetta-like civil actions. For his sakes, for Terry's sake, for Frankfort's sake, and for my sake. And if you need to talk to me in person, please don't hesitate. There's my phone number. If my presence and support for Jerry and Terry would help in any civil actions, I would be happy to take time off work and come and speak on their behalf, tell you anything that you want to know. It would be nice to, I'm willing to come anytime for my good neighbors who need me just now, because it would be so nice to be able to return all the wonderful favors that he has done for us over the years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello all. Most of you know me. My name's Ken DeLuke. I live right down the street from Jerry and Terry. If you go through the cornfield from my house, you walk into their house, basically. I've been around since 1989 in the village of Frankfort, and I used to actually own a bar, a restaurant, and been around the hospitality industry for a very long time before we started doing what we were doing. All I can say is that for the people of you guys who have not been there, this is one of the most amazing places you've ever seen. The bathrooms look nicer than the Palmer House downtown Chicago, okay? The type of accoutrements that they've built up in terms of just the charm, I mean, charm just says the word perfectly in terms of what this place looks like. This is an absolute boon to the village of Frankfort, okay? This isn't a biker bar where people are going and getting drunk on a Saturday night. This is something that people come into this town and they're going to say, wow, Frankfort's really a nice place, and they're going to frequent the restaurants and everything else that is part of this town. Now, I know there's certain hoops that people have to jump through to get through what they need to get done. That makes a lot of sense because there's got to be rules. But for the last 3 weddings, please don't ruin these people's lives for these last 3 weddings. Give them a chance just to do that, and then maybe we can all sit down, or they can sit down with you and come up to an agreement where the village is happy and they're happy and everybody wins. So, and if you haven't seen the place, by all means, please come by out and check it out. It's amazing. It really is. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else? Hearing nothing more, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned.